everyone, welcome back to Bodyhavensoaps. My name is Darlene. I am the owner and creator of Bodyhavensoaps, and I started this channel to help other creators create. So we go over recipes, we go over formulating, soap, all kinds of things, different parts of the business. These are all videos that are going to be coming. Hopefully I do get back to getting some recipes out there for you guys to experiment and try with. But right now we're just doing deep dives into how to formulate. Okay, so I've actually broke this series into a few different videos because there's a lot of information about formulating. So some of the previous videos that we went over, I did how to formulate, how to calculate your formulations, those types of things. So if you haven't watched those, go back and watch those. On this video today, we are going to go over shelf life of product. It's one of the biggest questions I get asked, and it's actually a pretty complicated question. It's not as simple as some people make it out to be. But again, I'm pretty particular about my stuff. But this is how I look at it, and the information that I have picked up over the years. So that's what I'm going to share with you. In this first video, we are going to go over the factors that help us determine shelf life. Okay, so that's what today's video is going to be about. So if that's something that interests you, keep watching. All right, so before we get started into that, once again, I want to say thank you to all of my supporters. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. For the people that have signed on to my Patreon, I can't say how much I appreciate that, and everybody that has reached out to me, it is so greatly appreciated. There's a couple people that are in my higher tier that I am helping formulate recipes that they wanted to create, so we're passing feedback back and forth, and I'm helping them create that. There's a couple people that are in that tier that haven't reached out to me, so that I would just like to ask those people, if there is anything that you need help with, please reach out to me and I will do the best I can to help you with that. Okay, all right, so let's get into the video. Okay, to start off with shelf life, it is a little bit more complicated than people perceive it as. Okay, you could make it really simple, but honestly, it's not that simple. So for this first bit, we're going to go over the factors we need to go over or have thought process towards to be able to determine an approximate shelf life. Okay, the only way you are going to get a close to definite shelf life, okay, which is a very hard thing to do, is to actually send your product away to a lab and have it tested. Have the preservative you use tested, and trials and all of that kind of stuff, which costs a lot of money, so a lot of people don't do that. We're going to go over some of the factors that we need to think about when we're determining a shelf life of our product, because we want our products to be safe for the people that are buying them if we're selling them, or even if you're using them yourselves, guys. All right, so to start off with, we have two different categories. Okay, so to start off with, we have our 100% oil-based product. That means they have no anhydrous, there's no water whatsoever in these products. They're 100% oil, okay? Theoretically, we don't have to use a preservative in these because there is no water in them. Now, that all depends on what you add into that product. If you add herbs or anything like that, that's going to change the property of it. Okay, but in saying 100% oil-based, we worry more about the rancidity of that product. Okay, so that product, oil's breaking down and becoming rancid, basically oxidizing. Okay, so that is our biggest thing. So they obviously have a longer shelf life because there is no water in them, and we don't need to use a preservative in it, but I would urge you to think about what are your customers doing with that product once they have it. Do they leave it in their bathroom with the lid off it and allow bacteria to get in? Are they washing their hands before they stick their hands into that butter and introducing bacteria in with those oils? So those are some of the things to consider when we're doing the shelf life, but basically the shelf life is going to be the shelf life of your oils. Okay, and then we have everything that we add, any water products to it. So that's going to be such as your lotions, things like that, or anything that is going to come in contact with water, our shampoo bars, our body scrubs, things like that that are used in the shower, and they come in contact with water multiple times and water gets introduced to them. Obviously, the way that we preserve things that contain water or do come in contact with water is using that preservative like we discussed. And really the preservative, you guys, it's a hard thing to just say, oh, we use this preservative, because keep in mind, like I said in the last video, preservatives, different pH, they may be ineffective, okay? Different ingredients can change whether a preservative is effective. So you really do need to know your preservatives. And I know that in the last video, I didn't give you specific preservatives to use with specific things. If you guys would like, I could do videos in the future where we deep dive into the preservative throughout. Okay, so we can do that where I am actually breaking down each preservative. If that's something that you guys would like to see, just comment in the comment box below. My goal is to provide you with information you are looking for, so make sure that if you're looking for something, that you put it in the comment box below. Okay, so those are the two categories we have. Now, we can extend the shelf life of our oils that are 100% oil by using that antioxidant. Okay, so antioxidants, as I said before, it is not a preservative. It gets confused for a preservative a lot of times simply because we have the factor that it is used to extend shelf life of oils, but it is not a preservative, okay? But it is an antioxidant which will slow down the rancidity of oil. So at any time I make an oil-based product, I put vitamin E, okay? There is different antioxidants out there, but vitamin E is the most common one. But adding vitamin E to, say, 100% oil-based body butter can extend that shelf life as well. So I've seen videos out there where people say, well, whatever the shelf life of your, lowest shelf life of your oil that's in your body butter, that would be the shelf life of your product. And yeah, you can do that. But if I've added vitamin E, I can extend that shelf life. So that's where our stability testing comes in, which will be a video coming up. Okay, but that's one thing to consider. So for all 100% oil-based products, I would always suggest adding an antioxidant to help extend that shelf life and give you a better product that's going to be more stable for a longer period of time. Okay, so the 100% oil-based products are pretty straightforward. Now we get into those water products. Anything that contains water needs a preservative. Anything that's going to come into contact with water, such as our body scrubs and things like that that are going to be used in the shower, our shampoo bars, okay, they should have a preservative in it to slow down the growth of bacteria. But that does not extend the shelf life of it for an indefinite amount of time, because a lot of factors can play in this. So what did you put in that lotion that you're making? So if it's a very basic recipe, and when you're first starting out, I would really suggest starting off really basic, not adding all these fancy ingredients, because there's a lot to learn about those fancy ingredients. So those are the types of things that I would consider. Is starting out with basic lotion recipes. As soon as you start putting in infused waters, hydrosols, things like that, well, those provide tons of nutrients and stuff that feed our bacteria. And this is why understanding preservatives is hugely important, because eventually if you've got all of this food in there for bacteria to grow on, well, that's going to shorten your shelf life, because now that bacteria is going to supersede your preservative. It's going to grow faster than that preservative can control it. So that's going to substantially shorten your shelf life. So what you're putting in that product is also going to be a consideration. So ingredients is a huge consideration to our shelf life. Even with our 100% oils, you guys, you start using things like hemp seed oil, flaxseed oil. Those have very short shelf lives. It's a couple of our shorter shelf life items. So even those are going to go rancid faster. So what you're putting into your body butters, the more complicated you make it, the faster it's going to go rancid. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So, you know, things like food products, okay? I wouldn't suggest using food products, okay, in your cosmetics. Dairy, things like that. If I'm making a homogenized product or a lotion, emulsification, I'm not going to be using a milk in that lotion. Okay, that is going to substantially shorten my lifespan of my product, simply because it is going to grow bacteria faster than the preservative that I can put in. Okay, you will see these milk lotions, things like that out there, but generally we see those in stores from large factory products, and there's usually 50 ingredients in there. We're not putting 50 ingredients into our product, and they're using ingredients that we just can't even get our hands on. So that's why we make our own, right? I mean, is to get away from those 50 ingredient recipes. But I wouldn't suggest milk. The only time that I will use milk is in my solid soaps, okay, that will become wet and dry, and they go through that saponification process. And I use milk in such a dry milk bath, right, that doesn't have water in it. We start putting things like hydrosols, aloe vera, things like that into our products. Keep in mind that is a huge food amount for our bacteria, so we're going to have to really do our research on our preservative to be able to preserve those types of products to give them a decent shelf life. I mean, it really depends. Are you making the batch for yourself and you're going to use it up in that month, or are you selling this product to somebody that may hold on to this product for a year before they use it all up? So those are things to keep in mind. Herbs, infused herb waters or oils, that shortens the shelf life. You've got your clays and stuff. So when we start introducing herbs or clays and things like that, we substantially shrink our shelf life, because they do feed the minerals, and everything from that do feed that bacteria a lot. Now, I love using my herbs and my clays. You guys have seen that in my previous videos, and it took me a lot of failed attempts to get a product where it effectively worked for me and gave me a decent shelf life. That's why we should always start out with the small batch and do our testing. And stability testing is a video that's coming up right after these two videos that I'm doing right now. But when we do that, so when I do, let's say, a clay face mask, I actually don't make a paste and sell it as a paste. I will make it as a powder. And I will sell my clay face mask as a powder. And then they add water to it. So they're going to take a tablespoon of that powder out. They're going to add water to it, mix it, put it on their face, rinse it off. So it's a very short amount of time that water is actually in that clay mask. Okay, that's how I choose to do it, because now I can guarantee the shelf life and there's less waste of product. I'm not throwing out stuff. I make a batch of clay masks that have water in it, or aloe vera juice, or whatever it is that you want to have in there. The shelf life is going to be substantially shortened. If I make a powder and I put powdered aloe vera in there, so when they add the water to it, I can still add those properties, but I've used a powder rather than a liquid. So those are some things to consider when you're thinking about shelf life of your products as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. The two hardest things for these natural ingredients is going to be your dairy products and your clays, and I would also consider your herb additions of like your herb infusions. So obviously, if you've looked at the herb infusions that you purchase from a supplier, there's multiple ingredients on it. So I have an example right here. Let's take a look. These are some of the little products that I have purchased recently here to do some testing and formulation for myself. Let's look at our chamomile liquid extract. Okay, so this is a liquid extract, so we know that it does have some water in it. Now, I have the ingredients here on the label here. So it is got aqua in it, so it's got water in it. Okay, and when I make my own herbal infusions, you guys, I do it in water. But they've also have glycerin in here. They have the chamomile flower extract because they've extracted that into there, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, and citric acid. And that is how they have balanced the pH of this and how they have balanced the stability of this product. Now, even saying they've added those things in there, the stability of this product has a very short shelf life, okay? The shelf life of this from the time that it's manufactured is only 12 months. So that's anything less than 12 months is considered a very short shelf life. So this does not have that huge shelf life that we see in our butters and things like that. Depending on the oils and butters that you purchase, this has got a very short shelf life. Now, can I buy chamomile extract in a powder form? Absolutely I can. Is it water soluble? Absolutely I can. And if I buy it in the powder form, it is 100% chamomile. Okay, so could I use powdered chamomile in my face mask rather than make a paste and use this? Okay, so I purchased this because there is a face spray that I make that I use, and the company that I was placing the order with does not sell powder. They only sell this. So I know that I will use this up for my own personal use right now, so that is why I've purchased this. It really does help with some of the skin conditions I have, so I ordered this because this is something that I didn't have anymore, right? Okay, so but does that make sense to you guys? So they add things into it. So if you're making your own herbal infusions, remember there isn't these additives and stuff in it. The pH hasn't been dealt with in it. That's why we need to go over pH testing. So I'm not saying don't make your own herbal infusions. I do it all the time, but I have learned a lot of information about those herbal infusions, and I've had a lot of failed attempts at making those herbal infusions where my products have had a very short shelf life. So I've had to adjust recipes and do a whole lot of learning to make it happen. So I'm not saying don't, I'm saying do your research on it and make sure that you understand the shelf life that that creates, or what you can do to that product to extend that shelf life, okay? Which is, you know, going to be in this series later on, okay? There's just a lot of information to go over. I'm still learning to this day, and I've done 5 years of research now. So this is just some of the stuff that I've picked up, and I'm just hoping to give you some insights to some of my failed attempts and how I changed that. Okay, so when we're talking about the herbal infusions, sometimes they can be very difficult to also extend that shelf life. Okay, so those things we have to factor in. So the simpler. Okay, so the simple recipes are going to have an extended shelf life. The more complicated you make your recipe, the shorter the shelf life. Okay, so essentially that's how that's going to work. So just remember also when we're making the product, so if I'm putting something like this chamomile extract into a product, the more I use of it, the shorter the shelf life, because essentially this is food. This is water and food in one ingredient that I'm adding to my product. Okay, there's a lot of nutrients and things. That's why we're adding it into our product, because of the nutrients and things that properties that it brings to our product. So we've provided that food for bacteria to grow. All right, and then we have water in here. So now we've given water and food. Well, that is the two things bacteria needs to grow. All right, so keep that in mind, the amount you use. So the less food I give it to grow, the slower it grows, the more effective my preservative. So when we're making water infusions, if I make 100% of my water a herbal infusion, which you guys have seen me do in previous videos, I know the shelf life of that is going to be a lot shorter than if I used a smaller percentage of infused water with clear water. That's obviously going to extend my shelf life because I've given that bacteria less food to grow. So the problem with giving your product lots of food to grow is that the bacteria will outgrow the preservative. The rate that that bacteria is going to grow, the preservative is not going to be able to keep up. That's the importance of understanding a preservative and the ingredients that you're adding into your product. Okay, so some of the factors that we need to consider for shelf life, you guys, any water-based product, we need to add a preservative. We need to understand the preservative we're adding works in the pH range. So you need to understand how to test your product for pH range to make sure that preservative is actually being effective, because remember, you're not sending their product away to a lab to have that tested. So you need to be able to test your own pH to be making these small batches of product. And I would test the pH in every product. Even if I've made that batch before, I make sure that my preservative is going to be effective, because how many things can change the result of a product, okay? So understanding that that preservative is actually going to work with those ingredients at that pH level, okay? Formulating your product, some formulations, like I said, are going to be harder to preserve than others. You start adding in your dairies, you start adding in your clays, your herbs, hydrosols, things like that. They are going to be harder to preserve. Some preservatives just don't work with some ingredients. So make sure that the preservative you're using doesn't have that stipulation to it. Okay, so when you're making your formulation, the easier the formulation is, the easier it is to preserve. Okay, another thing that we have to keep in mind is going to be the shelf life of our ingredients. Okay, the shelf life of the ingredient you're adding in. There's a big difference between, I just bought this chia seed liquid extract. With this chia seed liquid extract, the manufacturer, from the time it was manufactured until its shelf life, well, let's say that I purchased this, and fortunately for me, you know, a month after it was manufactured, I received the product. I have that amount of shelf life left on this product. I purchased this chamomile extract, for example. Let's say that I only have 3 months left on the shelf life of this when I got it. Well, that really shortens the shelf life of the product I'm adding in. So understanding the freshness of the ingredients you're adding in is going to determine shelf life as well. So just because I make one batch with this hemp seed oil that I made, let's say I'm just using this as an example, so 6 months ago, that hemp seed oil I put in there, the shelf life was fresh. Was manufactured a month ago, so I have that shelf life left. Now, 6 months later, I use the exact same bottle of hemp seed oil to make the exact same product, but now I'm 6 months shorter shelf life on that hemp seed oil. So the fresher the ingredient equals the longer the shelf life. So that's an important factor to understand the shelf life. Okay, is to know how fresh your ingredients are that you're putting into that product. That's going to determine shelf life. Okay, also the cleanliness. Okay, you guys have heard me a million times in these videos, clean, sanitize, everything should be sanitized. If I'm making a batch of soap bars, I sanitize everything. The less bacteria that we have, the better. So we want to try and eliminate any bacteria from the point that I try or that I manufacture this product myself. So I want to make sure that all of my utensils, all of my counter space, all of my containers I'm putting things into are sanitized. Okay. The last thing that you need to consider is storage. Okay. Well, we have that product. We can determine how that product's stored. I store all of my made products that are for sale in a dark location, in a cool area, where they're not getting sunlight on them to break down preservatives and product. I keep them in a cool location so that it is cool and we don't have the heat that allows bacteria to grow fast. But once I sell that to a consumer, Well, now I can't guarantee how that product's going to be used. They bought it and they left it in their car while they're at work through the heat of the day. Well, now that product's been in heat. They use it in the bathroom where there's humidity. They forget the lid off it. They don't wash their hands before they stick their hand in that container. So I don't have control once the product is sold. So we have to take that variable into consideration as well. Some of the ways that we can deal with this is to use darker containers. The clearer your container is, that's why we'll see a lot of essential oils in the brown glass, because it protects it more from the light and therefore slows down the deterioration of the product from light. If you're using clear containers, obviously the light can saturate into that product a lot quicker and break that product down. So those are some of the things, is packaging, how we can help shelf life as well. If a lotion, if you're putting it into a tub, well, people are sticking their fingers in that tub. Well, now we have a higher chance of bacteria being entered into that once I sell that product. So I may consider putting that into a pump form. Okay, guys, so that is some of the things that you need to consider when considering shelf life. So this is, I'm going to break this into series because you guys don't want to, watch me for 2 hours to explain all of this. So we're going to do different videos on this shelf life thing, because as you can see, this is a way more complicated question than, well, this was good for this long and this was good for this long and this only had 6 months left on it, so my product's good for 6 months. That may not be true, because the preservative that you added actually didn't work. So now that you've combined those ingredients, we have tons of food, we have water, and things are going to grow very rapidly, and you may not have 6 months of shelf life left on this for those reasons. So it's a little bit more complicated than just, my products were good for this long, this is what I've added, because you've added so many things together that product shelf life has been greatly shortened. So hopefully you guys gain some information into the whole product shelf life and what we need to consider when we're looking at shelf life. The next video I'm going to do, which I'm going to post today so that you guys can have that information, is how to determine the shelf life of each ingredient. Okay, you need to be able to do that to start off with, because freshness equals shelf life. Okay, so is it near the end of the shelf life just because this chamomile extract I know has a 12-month shelf life from the time it was manufactured? Doesn't mean that 6 months after it was manufactured I still have 12-month shelf life on it. So I've only got 6 months shelf life left on that from manufacturer's date. Okay, and what I add it to and how it's used is going to determine that shelf life. Okay, how stable is that product? So the next video that you guys are going to see pop up today is going to be on how to determine the shelf life of your ingredients. It is actually a thing that people do not know. I actually had a number of questions on what do I do with my oils or products if they're nearing the end of their shelf life or they have expired. So in the next video we are going to go over shelf life of ingredients, how to figure it out and how to find the information, and we are going to go over what to do when your products come to the end of their shelf life. Okay, like your ingredients. All right, and then the video after that I'm going to be doing is on stability testing. So these are the things that you need to consider. Then we have to understand the freshness of the ingredients that we're adding in. We have to understand the preservative of the ingredient that we're adding into that product. And we have to understand the stability testing. Because as I said, we're not all sending our products away to labs to have them specifically tested. That costs a lot of money, hundreds of dollars. So we know that we're not doing that as small business owners. But we still want to make sure we're providing a safe product to our consumers. We also have to consider our reputation of the product that we're giving people. Okay, so hopefully you guys found this video information. Once again, thank you for supporting me by watching my videos and stuff. If you like this video, give it a thumb up. You have any questions, please ask them in the comments below, and we will see you next time.